aim of this experiment is to prepare a mixture and a compound using iron filings and sulfur powder. After preparing the mixture and the compound, we will distinguish between the two on the basis of its appearance, whether it's homogeneous or heterogeneous, how it behaves towards a magnet, whether the particles can be separated with the help of a magnet or not, its behavior towards carbon disulfide as a solvent, whether it's soluble in carbon disulfide or not, and the effect of heat on it. The chemicals required for the purpose are iron filings 10 grams, sulfur powder 5 grams, some carbon disulfide solution, dilute sulfuric acid, and lead acetate paper. So we will first prepare a mixture of iron filings and sulfur by simply mixing it in a beaker or a china dish, and then we will observe the particles under a magnifying lens, and we find that when we see it under a magnifying lens, we can see individually the iron particles and the sulfur particles. They can be seen separately. Then we will set up the apparatus as shown here. We will be using a Bunsen burner, a tripod stand, a wire gauze, and a china dish in which we will be putting the mixture of iron filings and sulfur, and this time we are heating it. So on heating, we find that the mixture that we have added in the china dish, it turns black, showing the formation of a compound. And when we observe this compound under the magnifying glass again, we cannot see the individual sulfur and iron particles that were visible earlier, showing that they have undergone a chemical reaction and that has resulted in the formation of a compound that would be iron sulfide in this case. Let us see the activity now. For performing this experiment, we have taken some sulfur powder and some iron filings. This is our sample A. So I'm putting the iron filings and the sulfur powder in a china dish and I'm mixing it. So you can see the particles are clearly visible. So it is a heterogeneous mixture that has been made here. The particles are very clearly visible. You can see sulfur particles yellow in color and iron filings which look black here. So this is sample A, a mixture of iron filings and sulfur powder. Now we will heat this mixture and see. I've taken a tripod stand. I'm using a spirit lamp, a wire gauze, and a china dish to create this setup. And in the china dish, you can see I'm heating the mixture of iron filings and sulfur powder till the time it completely turns black. Heat it well so that the reaction occurs completely. It has now turned black completely, so that means that the compound iron sulfide has been formed here. You can see now there's no trace of sulfur that can be seen here or iron that can be seen here, showing that it's homogeneous in nature now. We will now test it with the help of a magnet. When we bring the magnet close to sample A, that was a mixture of iron filings and sulfur, you'll be able to see that the iron filings, they are going to be attracted towards the magnet. Look at this. The iron filings, they have been attracted towards the magnet, showing that the individual properties of the elements iron and sulfur have been retained when it was just a mixture. So almost all the iron has been attracted towards the magnet and only sulfur has been left behind in this china dish. On the other hand, when we bring the same magnet close to a compound, iron sulfide, we find that iron was not attracted towards the magnet, showing that when a compound has been formed, the individual properties of the elements are lost. You can see that now the iron is not coming towards the magnet. So the result of this experiment is, on the basis of its appearance, in case of sample A, that was a mixture, we see grey particles of iron and yellow particles of sulfur very clearly. In case of a magnet test, for the first sample, that is sample A, which was a mixture, iron particles clinged to the magnet because they were attracted towards the magnet, and when we added carbon disulfide solution to it, the sulfur particles, they dissolved in carbon disulfide. Whereas in case of sample B, which was a compound, As far as the appearance is concerned, we could see just grey black particles which were uniformly spread, and we could not identify the individual grey and yellow particles. Iron particles were not attracted towards the magnet, and there was no change when carbon disulfide solution was added to it, showing that the properties of a compound and the properties of a mixture are entirely different. Also, when we heated the first sample, when we heated the mixture, it got converted to a black mass, and a reaction took place, whereas no such change was observed when we heated the compound iron sulfide.